there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons listen out! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will be crushed.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man. None of it is true.
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
So yeah, welcome to the Deep Share. This is the first of 4 roundtables I'm doing called The Witness. And it's basically going to be different angles of perturbed consciousness. And I think we're all pretty familiar with states of perturbed consciousness in different ways. But this one's a little bit, not expected, I would say, when described like that, because it's paranormal, right? Doesn't, on the surface of things, we're just thinking poltergeist and ghosts and shit like that. But I mean, I've had a lot of interesting experiences through psychedelics that mimic a lot of paranormal experiences. And I've heard it kind of in an alien ET encounter kind of way too. So it kind of feels like it's all encompassing. So I wanted to do it in pieces and see if we can kind of find a golden thread here, or at least a better perspective about it, and have fun doing it. So that being said, let's just go around the horn and introduce ourselves. And everybody knows me already. So Ed, hey, how's it going, man?
How you doing? What's going on? I'm Ed Larson. I am a podcaster, comedian, writer, producer. I've been, you might have heard me on the Roundtable of Gentlemen, my current podcast, The Brighter Side. I also, I write a lot for Comedy Central. I write for the Comedy Central Roast. And I worked on Jeff Frost Roast Criminals, Roast the Border, and Roast Cops. Yeah, that's about it, man. I love it. And I think I've seen ghosts, but I'm not I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I've definitely heard. The reason why I wanted Ed to be here with us is mainly because he's hilarious and awesome. But on top of that, some of the ghost stories that you told in a more comedic setting back in the day were some of the more creepy connected ghost stories I've heard. So I'm like, I want that to be a part of this for sure.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I've had some weird experiences that I wish I had an explanation for,
Hey, maybe we'll get some different perspectives here tonight,
I love that. Please. Fucking hell.
Chaz, what's going on, dude?
Oh, nothing much. Another day in paradise. I'm Chaz, guys. I write for a couple different magazines and websites, including my own one, chazatthedead.com. Got a book out there, and all that weird stuff, ghosts, UFOs, and psychedelics. That's what I'm about.
Hell yeah. Scott, how's it going, dude?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I don't have any, I'm not writing any books or anything, but I've been a misfit my entire life. And I had a non-traditional upbringing in a kind of weird Gnostic school in Western Washington called the Ramtha School of Enlightenment back in the 1980s. And so that was, it didn't really lend to fitting into the normal thing. So.
Cool, man. Cool. Mason, how's it going, dude?
What's up, man? Glad to be here. My name's Mason. I also go by Schumann Beings in the last year or so. I make music and films. That's kind of been like my thing all along, but I recently got into this whole I guess awakening stuff, whatever you want to call it, in the last year, and like everything that's been going on in the world, and just kind of everything came at me at once. And so I wanted to jump in and start being a part of the community that I'd found, and started making, little videos and just posts and just trying different stuff, start out with like space weather, and I'm just trying to figure out like what my thing is exactly. But
Hell yeah,
happy to
man.
be here.
Glad to have you, dude. And Mason has this group, and that's how I met Scott, Schumann Beings on Telegram. That's just bombarding me every day with crazy links and amazing information. So it's really glad to have both of you guys here. And Chaz and I have been connecting for a long time now, talking about, dude, it's just wild because like we were connecting when I had this idea, but I hadn't even gotten into your book yet. And then when I did, and finding out like just how much of what I was planning on doing is what you were already thinking about. You know what I mean? So that's really cool. I love the connections we can make in this shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Felt like we were kindred spirits and investigating from the same angle. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Good chapter on there on how to use mushrooms to see UFOs.
Yeah.
Sure, it helps.
So I did want to like mainly do the the encounters, experiences that we've had are right off the bat, and then we can kind of just flow with it and just go wherever the hell we want. You know what I mean? So if anybody wants to jump in, take the wheel. Because that always works.
Shampoo, shoot. So
do it, buddy.
When I was 19, I was installing cabinets right up by Seattle, and for a Canadian cabinet company. And one night I was sleeping on the floor of the house we were renting for the whole crew, and I got woken up out of my dead sleep, right? And I look over and I see like this silhouette of a person. It's like 6.5, 7 feet tall, and it's just looking at me, and I'm looking back at it, and I'm not scared. I'm pulled out of my dead sleep looking at this thing, and it looks at me for a minute, and I look back at it, and then it does a 180 and walks out through the second floor exterior wall, and I'm left with what the fuck, and I go back to sleep. I mean, it wasn't like scary, but it was very weird, and I hadn't had any experiences like that since I was like a really, really little kid. So.
Seems scary. As just someone from an outsider point of view, that would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I saw these things as a little kid, it wasn't like frightening to me because I didn't know I wasn't supposed to see them. I was like 2 or 3 years old, and they're just around all over the place. And,
whoa.
Never any like pots flying across the room or like red rum on the mirror or anything like that. But
well, that's good.
Well, I had my initial experience as a child as well. I think I was probably around 8 or 9 years old. And my parents had just installed these bunk beds on top of the bed that was already there. My older brother got the top bunk, and I moved into that bottom bunk. And one night I fell out of bed, and I woke up, and there was a pair of red eyes under the bed, almost like a Halloween graphic. Like today, it's cheesy when I remember it in my mind.
Yeah.
And it was staring back at me. And of course, I'm a kid. I hop in the bed, blanket over your head. You're safe. You're good. I waited out till morning. So the next morning, I get up and I start cleaning out underneath the bed, which of course is something no kid ever does. But I was looking for something. I was looking for something to like make a red light, anything to explain what I saw. And my older brother came down the ladder of the bunk bed and saw what I was doing. Without me prompting or saying anything, he asked me, "Did you see the red eyes too?" Because he had had that experience a few weeks before when he was sleeping on the bed.
Man, he got your ass.
I think about that. I do. That's the most logical explanation. And I've asked him. I've asked him a couple times. And he sticks to it. So until he's willing to relinquish, it would suck because I based my whole career on this.
That would be terrible on his deathbed someday.
By the
Chaz,
way,
I got you, fucker.
That would be brutal.
That would be brutal.
But as long as he's telling the truth, That was the first paranormal kind of experience. I mean, we didn't really live in a haunted house. It was, kind of this one-off experience, but at the very least, as long as he's not lying, at the very least, it's a shared dream. We had the same dream, and that in of itself is something paranormal. That's been the most sane explanation is, oh, you guys had the same dream. Well, how does that work? That doesn't make any sense. That in itself is kind of paranormal. So that's how I kind of started in this and started investigating, the connection between the mind and reality and things that go bump in the night.
Yeah, I mean, that brings me immediately to some of my psychedelic experiences. I vividly remember on mushrooms, my friend and I having a full-blown conversation and laughing hysterically every time we spoke because we weren't using our mouths. But were we both just
been there?
Have you? Because I don't know. I still question it. Were we just laughing hysterically because we were on mushrooms? And I was just thinking, but I don't know. We were confirming the same things. It was nuts, So you had that experience too, Ed?
Yeah, man. Yeah, when we ate a bunch of liquid acid and we went to Islands of Adventure. Me and 3 other buddies, and one of us stayed sober so they could drive home. And he later on he told us we were talking with our minds. He was like there was a while I got scared because the 3 of you were just acknowledging each other and answering each other, and no one was talking. And it was just and then then you all looked at me and started laughing. And then I was I vividly remember us talking. And it's
wow.
So it's I don't know what it was. We probably all thought we were saying different shit, but the truth is we all we just went for it. It was on a just we took way too much acid.
Well, liquid acid right off the bat, right? How can you take too little? It's almost impossible.
I asked to take 1 drop, and then the guy who gave it to us, he just had it in a Visine bottle, and he just squirted it in our mouths. And so we all just,
my God,
we all went
Blast
to
off.
just walking around Isles of Adventure, going to Dr. Seuss land, 1 fish, 2 fish, blue fish, 3 fish. It was great. I loved it. I would do it again.
I'm surprised you got back. Holy shit.
Yeah, man. I love that. I saw, acid definitely helps you see crazy shit. I for sure, I saw, I went to Halloween Horror Nights and up on blotter acid one time, and I was up all night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw a clown with a chainsaw. It was, it was definitely the drugs and the situation I put myself in.
Well, yeah. But it is interesting, the whole talking without your mouth, the possibility of it. We all have our own language in our heads, kind of, you know what I mean? We're all using small mouth noises, just flapping our meat sacks together, and we're understanding one another. So there's some kind of whatever we end up calling psychic connection someday, you know what I mean? Yeah. There is some through line there where we're communicating regardless. Maybe it's through facial expressions or something like that that's innate in us, something like that. I don't know.
It was also, we were very close, the 3 of us that were on it. So we had another language, we were able to kind of speak without speaking and know what the other guy meant.
Yeah, I've seen that on edibles before. A friend of mine and an ex, they very close friends, and they took a big piece of weed cake. Neither of them smokers or habitual users of any kind, and an hour and 32 minutes, I believe, is how long they just laughed back and forth without ever saying a word. They just looked at each other and they never stopped laughing. It was impressive.
That's gotta be that's pure form of communication right there. Just raw communication. Just, this is what's happening. The realization comes over you, especially on psychedelics. It almost feels like reality itself becomes this ridiculous toy that you were playing with. Really? That's what I was doing? There's all of this.
So funny.
So yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Ed, I know you have some intense stories that kind of, a couple of them are kind of linked in that same way, where wasn't like your little niece involved, where like she repeated something that like about little kids, or I don't know. You tell the story obviously better than I do.
So, my aunt Patty, she had this place in Linden, New Jersey, right next to Elizabeth, close to Newark, and she bought this place. It was already existed, and this is like when I'm a young kid. I'm like 3. I'm 4. Between until 10. Those ages, and there was 3 bedrooms upstairs, and the middle bedroom was the guest room, and it was kind of messed up. Like you would sleep there, and like you get like a lot of like my mom had the same thing. Like you'd sleep in that room and you get like sleep paralysis, and you're like someone's holding you down on the bed and stuff like that, and it was like really messed up and scary. And so, and I'm a kid, I don't know what the hell's going on. So I end up sleeping in my cousin's room most of the nights. But then like there's these like, there's a little attic. There's like it's 3 rooms and like a main area upstairs, and then there's like a little side attic. And then in the attic, you would occasionally hear like what sounds like kids playing, but like, like it's just like, I can't really explain it. My memory is definitely a little foggy on it, but it was like, but that was like, something that was happening. And then another time, and then occasionally like they had those speakers in the house, like where you like could press it and you could talk to people in the other room, how they had in the like 70s and 80s. And then
Yeah, I had that as a kid.
Every once in a while you just hear breathing out of that thing. And and I would say it was my uncle fucking with me until I heard it when I was alone in the house, and no one else was there. And then I heard it, and I was like, "Oh shit! Like this is fucked up."
They're
And
always
then
messing with electricity.
Yeah, I know exactly, especially like walkie-talkies and stuff like that. It's like it's what you always see.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward a couple of years, my mom is staying up there, and she's just up there visiting, and she swears to God she got pushed down the stairs. Like right out, she was staying in that middle room. She swears to God she got pushed down the stairs, and like no one else and like she broke her nose, and she was by herself, and she's like, I didn't fall, I got shoved. And so it's like, okay, all right, like we all know that something's weird, like everyone who lives there. My whole family is like real into ghost shit too. That side of the family, they love all that stuff. And then fast forward a couple of years after that, my uncle's staying in the room, and he's living there now. And my uncle is like, he's autistic, and he can't hear, or he can't and he can't really see. And so he's got a horrible situation. And we just I stayed there like downstairs in the living room. We just heard him yelling out of that room, and kind of like blew it off as poor Uncle Eddie, but when you think back, it's like he was probably getting tortured by this fucking spirit. And so
That's
they
terrible.
and so they gave the ghost a nickname, Vito. And it was like, and then we find out that like there was a dude they called like a medium over, like to come over and like investigate the house. And they were like, yeah, there's someone here who was involved in some shady stuff, and they've hidden something in the house, and they're protecting it. And they have they had kids and stuff like that, and they're like, okay, this all like kind of checks out. And it's like, so in that middle room, probably, so of course, my aunt and uncle fucking ripped through the walls trying to find it. They didn't find it. But
it's gold. Treasure.
But, so now we're like a couple years later, I'm like, I'm like 20, and I'm out. They've moved out of the house. The house is out of the family. And I'm at Fridays with my aunt, my cousin, and my cousin's kid, who's 5 years old. And she, one day we're just kind of talking about the house a little bit, talking about how spooky it was. And then out of nowhere, the 5-year-old's like, I miss those kids. I miss the kids I used to play with. And we're all like, what the fuck? We've never talked to you about this.
Oh my God.
Like, those kids were so much fun. We had such a great time. We were like, I was like, what the? I'm freaking out.
That gives me chills. Kids always do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it was just like, and like, I'm down for an explanation. I know there's coincidences and stuff like that. But like kind of what like keeps me going back to believing in spirits, because I'm a hardcore atheist, you know, and so like what keeps me like going back to like believing in spirits is every culture has a form of it. Every, you know, like no matter what it is, you know, every culture kind of believes in like a little like something with spirits, you know, indigenous people, you know, and it's like everybody, you know, so it's like, well, there's got to be something to it. And then
Right.
when I was in Florida, I saw a bunch of stuff in Florida too.
Really?
Yeah, no, I remember my school was next to a graveyard. My Catholic school was next to a graveyard. And I was doing this Boy Scouts thing. My mom was den mother and my dad was there driving us, and we were driving home and we were driving past the graveyard, and this like dark blue shadowy figure was like in the road. And me and my mom were like, stop the car. My dad's like, what are you talking about? It's like, there's a person in the road. My dad's like, there's no one in the road. And then he just like drives through the blue thing.
Whoa.
And then me and my mom start screaming, you just hit somebody, you just hit somebody, you just killed somebody. We start going crazy and shit. And then we made my dad pull over and we went and looked, and of course there was nothing there, you know, and stuff like that. And then we get back in the car, and then all the locks in the car just start going like a crazy like malfunction or something. It just went and I was like, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? And then nothing, you know, and then nothing. Like and now it's, you know, I was like 11 then or something like that. Now like 5 years later, my buddy Tim Dean gets his driver's license. He's the first one to get his driver's license, and we're just cruising around town, and we happen to be cruising down that street, and then someone in the back seat of the car just starts screaming, Tim, you're gonna hit somebody, stop. I didn't see shit.
Whoa.
Tim didn't see shit, but it's the same exact block through the graveyard. And then, you know, we got the kid swears up and down that he like, and I remember like what happened, like I know where I am, you know, but like I didn't see shit. And you know, and so I'm like, all right, so we pull over, we look, and I'm just kind of playing along at this point because I'm not trying to fucking talk about a ghost in front of a ghost, you know. If it exists, like I'm not going to acknowledge it exists. I'm you know, a lot of people are like so excited to meet ghosts. I want nothing to do with it. They like you stay as far away from me as possible. And then so we get out and we get back in the car and we start driving away, and the locks start doing the same fucking thing. You know, it's just like the world's biggest coincidence, or something went down, you know, like, but both times it was like a blue shadowy figure, like a dark blue, no, like you couldn't see like direct, you know, couldn't see like their nose or their eyes, but it was like the outline of a human, you know.
I'm in Florida. You got to give me that address. I got to check that out.
Boca Raton. Boca Raton, baby. East Boca. I can't remember the street, but right next to St. Joan of Arc church. Yeah.
All right. We'll look into that. I thought the children laughter thing stuck out to me because one of the weirdest kind of paranormal experiences I've had was it was at a hotel in Florida. But not one of the old, you know, haunted ones.
Not the Stanley
around the state. No, this was like, it was like an Econo Lodge or like a La Quinta. It was terrifying. You know, just kind of terrifying in a different way.
Definitely haunted.
And I was there with some teammates in the wrestling team, and we were staying on the top floor. And it was 3 of us in this room, and for whatever reason, we were talking about ghost stories. We were sharing weird encounters, and the one girl that was there, she had a bunch of weird stories. And the whole time while we're telling these stories, outside in the hallway of this hotel, there's kids. It sounds like they're bouncing a ball, they're running up and down. You know, they're just laughing, playing, and it's loud, like it's, you know, quite loud. And we're telling ghost stories and all that stuff, and then it's time to go to the wrestling meet. So we go to leave, and the second the door opens, the children laughter cuts, all the sound cuts, and we open to an empty hallway. And, you know, we were like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. We were telling these ghost stories. Maybe we just freaked ourselves out. Maybe they went in the room. You know, what? It's a coincidence. So we walk down the hall and we get in the elevator, and clear as day, we hear this voice whisper, Tori, which was the girl in the group. That was her name. And it's the clearest to this day, you know, voice I've ever heard in a paranormal situation. I can still hear it today. No one to be seen, no one on this floor, and we just kind of stood there in shock as the doors closed and it started to go down. Yeah, it was weird. And, you know, you can see it in 100 horror movies and scary stories. The children laughter, it's a common effect.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know where that comes from. Babies crying too. That's another common one in Bigfoot and cryptids and lore. You have these trends, these vocal phenomenon, vocal hallucinations, if you want to go that route, that seem to repeat before weird shit happens.
Yeah, man. I'm that's what is when you guys are telling these stories about things repeating like that, it just, I have some weird theories about, like, you know, it's not even my theories, it's just putting stuff out there that's already together, or like this fractal nature of reality. When you, especially from a psychedelic perspective, I felt like I was just a Russian doll in a series of Russian dolls, and everything was just a copy of a copy of a copy. And when you put together the idea that, like, there's theories out there about like the holographic nature of physical reality, and how it could be all vibration, like resonating at different frequencies. And that's where I want to bring Mason into it, because Mason, you haven't had a chance to get into this yet, so I want to hear your perspective on this. So what's going on, man?
Yeah, man, I like taking all this in, like hearing all these stories, like it's crazy. Like I've had paranormal experiences like my whole life, and like I've never had anybody else like to share it with, you know. So this in itself is like really cool. But
hell yeah, man.
Like when I was a kid, like I used to see things like in the window, like at night, like, you know, and of course, you know, I thought it was just my imagination, but like I had stuff like old radios that would turn on and like make noise, and like voices coming through with no batteries. Like I moved to another property where like my parents moved, and like I had an experience with like I guess an entity or whatever. Like these days I question like everything. I'm like, what was it really? Like now I'm like reanalyzing everything, you know, in my past. But like I had something grab me on the back of my neck. Like
physical
it was
contact,
like pulled me out of a chair, like pulled me out of a chair. And like my dad came in, and like he didn't know anything that was going on. Like he, you know, like no context whatsoever, but he ran back out, came back in with like a crucifix. And I was just like, whoa, like, so I'm not just fucking around here. Like I've had stuff like that. Like I fast forward a few years later, like stayed at a townhouse with some friends in Gainesville, Georgia. Very, very like haunted place because of Lake Lanier, and like that's a whole like rabbit hole in itself. But like was living there, and like I saw stuff there, like actually saw things moving, like felt things. Like it was insane. Like, and I've wondered my whole life, like why I've continually, you know, encountered these things, and like these entities, like beings, like spirits, ghosts, whatever they are. But, you know, last year, like coming into this like new perspective of everything, with like I started kind of, you know, like studying like Nikola Tesla stuff and Walter Russell, and like just, you know, like you said, stuff about frequency and vibration and the Schumann resonance, and like something just kind of clicked, you know, when I started to just understand just the energetic, you know, like just the energetics behind everything, and like that everything is energy. And I started to like look at, you know, the supernatural in a different way. I started to look at like, you know, human life in a different way. And so it's been a crazy journey trying to, you know, go through the past and like understand everything I've been through, everything I've experienced and seen, and like, you know, try to move forward and continue to, you know, just pick everything apart and put the puzzle pieces together the best I can.
Hell yeah, man.
It seems like to me like all of our experiences happened when we were younger. Has anyone experienced anything recently? I haven't had anything in like 20 years, like, so I'd be interested to hear if anyone's had anything happen recently, or if it's just like, is it our fragile child minds, maybe making up part of it? I'm playing devil's advocate.
Fair enough.
Like,
That's
is it like our child minds like making up half the story,
See, I've
or
experienced.
or are we weaker at a younger age and then like more susceptible to this shit?
I don't know, because I've experienced more as an adult than I ever experienced as a child.
Ooh.
Like in the last few years, like like the townhouse I was living at, like there was actually like, I'm trying to not go into the whole story because it's something that could be like an episode of its own, but like
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do a video on it because I've never really talked about it, but like there was an actual exorcism that was performed at this place. Like one of my friends ended up getting, I guess, possessed is the best way we could like understand it, but it was scary. It was weird.
What happened?
Like,
Yeah.
basically,
hey,
like,
this is what we're here for,
and I'm
brother.
still right. And I'm still trying to understand, like, just in the, like, I go to this place and like, I needed a place to stay. I was going through some rough times, and like my friends are like, you can stay with us, but and, like they just trailed off, and I was just like, but what? Like weird roommate? You got rats? You got like what? What is
say
it?
that.
They
He's been
had
scratching at the ceiling.
they had an infestation of fleas and or something. At first I thought it was just like, I'm like, okay, they got like bug problems, whatever. I'm not judging, but it got worse and worse to the point that like we couldn't even go in the place, and exterminators would come and they would treat it and they would come right back. And like it was just like there was something dark in this place, I'm telling you. And like it felt dense in there. It felt heavy. Like it felt like you couldn't breathe when you were in there. And like my friend's boyfriend, like he started, I don't know, he just started getting really like moody and just, I didn't know him super well, but from what I was described, like it wasn't, like how he was like as a person at all. And within like a week's time, like I only stayed there for about a week, maybe a week and a half. And like just during that time, like I experienced things that just made me question everything. Like at that time I was kind of agnostic, like just kind of like, I didn't want to say atheist. Like I didn't really believe anything specifically. I just didn't believe anything specifically, like I was just looking for answers basically. But it made me believe a lot of things. It made me like just question everything. It made me feel like shit, like this stuff's real. This stuff's like all around us. And since then, it's like I haven't had experiences quite like that, but it's just something I've never forgotten. Like it's something to this day. Like I still don't understand what happened. I saw things move. I saw doors slam. I saw the front door like deadbolt itself. Like my girlfriend, who doesn't believe in anything, like she's like, yeah, even I felt very uncomfortable there. She even heard like weird sounds. And like everybody that we brought in, like, we found like, and that was the weird thing is like, once this happened, I started meeting people that were like, oh, I'm psychic. Oh, I'm like into this paranormal stuff. And I'm like, where were you guys my whole life? Now all of a sudden you just appear. Like just like the synchronicity of it all was like incredible. But everybody that came over, like they all had the same like conception of what was happening. They all saw the same things. They all, like it was like everything connected. And I don't understand why it's like followed me my whole life. Like everywhere I go, it's like there's just like something.
Well, they say some people are more open to it than others, and you brought up synchronicity, and that's kind of what got me into this whole project of mine. Was actually watching a show called Hellier, and there was tons of synchronicities in that show. And I didn't take, I just took it as a show, an interesting show, but there was just so many. They just dropped symbolism after this crazy shit left and right on every single episode. It was just basically like baiting us to like fall in love with all this crap. So like I just opened right up into it again after so long of not really being, just turning a blind eye to a lot of it, taking a break from psychedelics and all that stuff. But I had an experience similar to the thing that you mentioned about like the bug problem. So there's this area in where I'm from in Massachusetts called Spider Gates already has a ridiculous name. The gates of this cemetery have this big spider on the center of it.
Why?
So it's like
don't do that. That's
right. You're just inviting creepy shit. You know, like you said, as soon as you started getting into this stuff, boom, everybody started showing up, right?
Yeah.
So this place is clearly inviting some creepy shit. But there was also a young boy that was hanged or hanged himself back in like the 70s or 80s. That tree is chopped down. Now it's called like, it used to be called like the hanging tree. Now it's called the hanging stump. But I haven't been there in years. But the last time I was there, I brought a friend with me who was like, she was just a real hippy dippy chick and she loved being out in the wilderness, and we were heading out Western Mass. So I brought her there. I was like, yeah, we'll get stoned in the woods. This place is awesome. We went there and it was an onslaught of horseflies. We could not enjoy ourselves anywhere in the entire, like it just followed us wherever we went. It was nuts. And I had never been attacked by horseflies at this
They'll
level.
fuck you
It was
up.
nuts. Yeah, man, they are vicious. It was crazy.
This
So I
was
was
at
just
night?
interesting.
Yeah,
No, this
it's
was
like there's bugs and then there's biblical bugs. Like and like
this was
yeah,
like
it sounds
dusk.
like
Yeah. Yeah, biblical bugs. Yeah, exactly.
I grew up in Florida, so we always had biblical bugs. You know, it didn't matter.
Yeah, I always heard like you used to have bats, but the mosquitoes ate them all or something.
I mean, I believe it. Those mosquitoes were the size of bats. You just confuse them, you know. But I mean, I had other shit happen to me down in Florida, which I couldn't explain. I was in this. We just moved into this house, new house. You know, like we built the house, and so like to me, like that doesn't make sense that anything would be there. You know, and so I'm in the house, and we're new in the house, and you know, shit would just go missing all the time. And I'm not the most rememberable. I don't remember shit. And and so like I was like, I lost it, but then it would be gone for 3 weeks, and then it would just like be on the middle of my desk. And just like I'm not that stupid. Like I'm like, and so and it would be weird. And like in that house, I would have my buddies sleep over all the time. And we would hang out in my room, and then we go into the next room because there were like 2 twin beds, and we would sleep in there. And I remember one night we were walking from one room to the other, and then straight down the hallway is like at the end of this hallway is like a chair, like a lazy boy. And we see what we thought was my dad sitting in the chair. And once again, it's this blue shadowy figure, just like sitting in the chair, and like no like distinct features, but there's someone in that chair, because there's a window behind him and we see the outline of a human. And so we're like, hey dad, what's going on, you up late, and like
Please be dad, please be dad.
Yeah, my friend was like, hey Mr. Jerry, you having a late night snack, ha ha ha, and then nothing, no reaction, no movement. And so I remember we're like, okay, we're just gonna go ahead and go on into the other room there and shut the door and pretend like this didn't really happen like this, And then a couple weeks later, I'm on the phone with my buddy. I'm home alone. This is actually during the day, and I get a knock. I hear some knocking on my back door. And I was like, oh, I'm like, you here? Because it's like right when cell phones became a thing. And I was just like, you here? You at the house? And he's just like, nah, man. And I'm like, well, someone's knocking on my door and ain't no one there. And so I open the door, I walk around the house, there's nothing there. And then I shut the front door. And then as soon as I shut the front door, the sliding glass doors in the back just start shaking. Like an earthquake, but just like these 2 doors. And you can see through, there's nothing there. And these doors are just shaking and shaking and shaking, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. And then I was like, all right, I gotta call you back. And then I hang up the phone, and then the front door starts shaking, and I open the door, and there's no one there. And no one could have gotten away that fast. Like it was just like, unless there was like the only earthquake in Florida ever, like at my house, there's no way to explain this shit. And and this is also like my mom's always seeing stuff and like saying things, and I'm like, all right, this is fucking weird. And I start talking. I tell my buddy who lives down the street. He's like, "Yeah, I have weird stuff too, and so does Aya and Imran." And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "So they're like, yeah." They're like, and so we start finding out that apparently our whole neighborhood was like built on a fucking plantation, and it's yeah. And so it's like, oh, and so like everyone in the neighborhood was seeing shit, and then like to the point where like, and then once we all started telling each other, that was like, oh fuck, like with this whole land
Let's
is
get out of
fucked.
here.
Yeah, this like if it was just my house, I'm an idiot, but like it's everyone in the neighborhood, and then like someone's like it's built on a plantation. You're like, oh shit, okay.
Jeez. It's almost like Poltergeist, where it's like, yeah, it's all like it's built on a cemetery, and they only move the headstones.
Yeah, man, you didn't move the bodies, just the headstones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no. So
there's something to that trauma, though, man. Like emotional trauma and scarring will leave a mark in areas for sure. There's no question about that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was feeling from that too, because like, and that resonates with what we were talking about, like this frequency thing, like all of it being, I don't know, like it's all a part of the same thing. You know what I mean? Like whatever we're accessing in like the deepest realms of psychedelic experience, meditation in some respects. Like, dude, I saw a video yesterday of a monk that's been training since his like birth, basically, to be able to breathe fire. And he did it. And this dude comes up to him, and he lights a cigarette off the dude's fire that's coming out of it's nuts. And you watch the whole thing, the camera does not, it's one continuous shot. It's not a trick. Like what is, so like we're accessing some thing that I think is basic. Uh-oh, Chad. Okay. Thought you just got abducted.
Not yet.
Not yet. But yeah, you guys hear what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that there was kind of an aha moment in my research where, I've been into this stuff ever since I was a kid, spooky things. But I was always, oh, a ghost is, a dead person. And an alien is someone from,
oh shit.
You're muted, Holmes.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so it was, I always thought, ghosts are dead people, aliens are from different planets, Bigfoot's a lost, ape. And what kind of changed that for me was an experiment I did on a Ouija board. And while I was on mushroom teas, and I did a couple of these over a course of a few weeks, which was bad for my health. I did collapse a couple times during the weeks. So you space your trips out more. But the effect while on mushrooms doing the Ouija board was nothing. Nothing happened. I was looking for the big aha moment. But in these times between the experiments, I started to see UFOs. And, I had never seen a UFO before. And I, had been interested in the stories and that kind of stuff, but I had never really felt a connection to it until I started seeing one. The first one was almost like it was this object in the sky. It had this consistent brightness, and it scattered into a bunch of little pieces and flew around. And then the one that sold it to me was when my friend was sitting next to me. We were smoking a doobie, but I smoke those every day, and they don't make me see UFOs. We were smoking a doobie, and we were talking about my weird experiments and the UFOs I've been seeing. And he was like, "Okay, yeah, that's you're crazy. You're taking mushrooms. That's why you're seeing UFOs." And I'm like, yeah, I've considered that, but I really think I'm onto something. We're going back and forth, and we start to hear this metallic hum. And one of us says jokingly, like, oh, maybe that's a UFO now. And almost ironically at this point, this triangle-shaped craft, floats right over the house. It's so low I could hit it with a baseball. I mean, it's like right above us, and stops for a second, almost meaningfully, and then just keeps cruising on. And this was a friend of mine who didn't believe in any paranormal stuff. We hadn't really considered any of it, but wasn't really interested in any of that. And he was just like, what the fuck was that? And having that second witness, that person, beside me, I was like, well, shit, this is something. It's not just the mushrooms.
That's
something else is going on. Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's wild. So you think it was like an alien thing?
Well, I'm not really sure. I go back and forth every day on UFOs. Well, what I think is going on, and again, this is from a lot of crazy experiments, similar to the mushroom teas and Ouija boards, but going to different places, hot spots, these paranormal locations, and taking hallucinogens. I think that for the most part, science is right when they say, well, you're just hallucinating these things. The problem is they don't realize that all of reality is a hallucination. So you can hallucinate something and it can be non-physical, but you can hallucinate something and it can be physical at the same time, because some people, they come back from these UFO experiences with implants, little pieces of metal inside their body. And, people say, oh, well, those pieces of metal aren't for space. Well, they're clearly some kind of weird designed thing that appeared inside of them. So that's still a problem. Just because it's not from Mars doesn't mean it's not something weird.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, these physical things occur on all of Bigfoot leaves behind footprints. That's what he's famous for. That's a physical thing on the ground we can see and say, hey, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. Ghosts very often move things on camera, in front of people, voices, these kinds of things that are physical on some kind of level, because it's interacting with a reality. Some poltergeists on the crazy level, they'll write notes and leave messages and that kind of stuff, handprints on windows and weird stuff like that. So it's definitely, I think something, it doesn't end with, it's not as simple as this is a dead person or this is a little green man from Zeta Reticuli. It's something to do with how our mind interacts with reality. And that's why I think it's so close to shared dreams and psychic communications, and these kind of things all seem to be interwoven in the best ghost stories and alien stories. And I think there's something to that.
I think so too. Oh, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I always, I know you just said this isn't the way it is, but I always held, spirits and ghosts in a completely different category than aliens, and the crazy thing is I've never seen anything that I thought could possibly be an alien or a UFO, but I know it has to exist. I think it's pretty ignorant of us to anyone to think that there isn't life on other planets. That's crazy. That's really self-centered of us to believe that we're it. That's that's fucking there's a million different animals. What are we even talking about? It's just there's got to be life on other planets. But as far as ghosts, though, even though I've had my experience, I feel there's a good chance it's not real. There's I think that I could have just seen some shit and I don't know, but
so you're a coincidence believer.
Yeah, I am. But also
one of those.
Well, I always like to say it's real in a different way, because it isn't the ghost of Grandmama. It could still, we don't know how time works. We only have these vague notions of reality because we're limited by our senses. So yeah, it could be Grandma's not a ghost, she's a time traveler. You're just seeing her from last week.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too about UFOs. My favorite explanation for because I've always had my problem on the other end of the spectrum with simply labeling it all as nuts and bolts machines, unless it was just government projects, you know what I mean? And, for instance, the entire disclosure project that's going on. But, besides that, I would say that my favorite explanation for it is the same way a radio tunes in and out a different frequency. You watch these different pieces of footage from all sorts of decades over the past of these UFOs, and a lot of them will just vanish out of thin air, or the light will disappear out of thin air. And the orbs with Bigfoot, that's a similar thing where all these orbs get seen before a lot of Sasquatch sightings. It feels like we're back to this idea of frequency, and perhaps it's all just this one giant field. And are you guys familiar with Aldous Huxley and his work with what he wrote about LSD and stuff? So check it out. He wrote about this reducing valve of consciousness, basically. And, now there's different terms for that and there's different ways to think about it. But his idea was that what psychedelics did was just open the door, you know what I mean? And our brains already have the receptors for the psychedelics already right there. So it's like our brains are like expecting a date with some DMT at some point, and so basically I forgot where I was going with that because I'm stoned. Fuck.
You're getting distracted by DMT.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fail.
Yeah, I think that I think I might know where you were going.
Sure.
The idea that these substances change the radio tuner of your mind, so you can
That's
see
what I was. Yeah, the reducing
different kind
valve.
of So
exactly.
so
to exist in the normal world, we had to like, our brains had to kind of develop this normal mode, or this survival tactic of like, okay, how do I eat? How do I shit? How do I do this? How do I do? And it evolved into, how do I talk to these people? How do I interact? And the instincts kind of fell away and stuff like that. But along with it, this wide open view of whatever reality is actually presenting to us. You know what I mean?
Right.
So perhaps it's just that like we're getting glimpses, little tears through the veil or something like that, maybe. You know what I mean?
I definitely don't study like y'all motherfuckers. You definitely know a lot more about this than I do. But I will. One thing I heard that I kind of believe is that marijuana like could dull your senses to the paranormal, and how it could stop you from seeing spirits and ghosts.
God, I hope that's not true.
Me too.
My entire career, I'm wasting my time if that's correct.
Well, it might not work for everybody, and probably some people, but I can speak for myself. Is when I started smoking marijuana, I haven't seen one thing since.
Dude, I can at least relate on the dream spectrum. I do not dream at all anymore because I use marijuana to go to sleep, because it's not addictive at all.
I dream like a lunatic, so I don't.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I don't know, just me.
Yeah, I've definitely got violent ass scary dreams, but what are you gonna do? I call them free horror movies. I call them.
Oh, jeez. That's my wife. Literally every night she has lucid dreams. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. She must be.
That's like a
must be a little
superpower.
further open. Yeah, man. I told her she should be writing them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard writing down dreams definitely helps you build up that like you start to retain them and you can process them more. It's like it's almost like a way of tuning into the dream frequency. Like going back to the idea of frequency is like, the more you can kind of latch yourself onto that reality or whatever you want to call it, like the more you can connect to it. Like I've definitely been able to lucid dream, but I'm also there with you about like marijuana just completely like kills my ability to dream.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not alone there. It's weird. It's like maybe if some people that happens to them and some don't.
Yeah. I mean, I still get them, but it's usually only when I like usually I'll get up early in the morning and I'll like go out to the hammock outside or somewhere just to kind of like gradually wake up. And sometimes if I'll like doze back off, I'll usually have a really vivid dream. It's really strange, but like I don't really dream any other time.
Interesting.
I find that it makes me forget my dream. Like if I wake up and the first thing I do is think about what I was dreaming about, I can get it. But if I don't do that immediately, out the window.
Oh yeah, I'll get so mad as a creative. I get so mad when I forget my dreams because it's just like a free writing session.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like give me those weird ass thoughts. So
and if you do write them down,
sometimes if I remember, I'll grab my phone and go to my notes section and write everything I can remember real fast. But
Well, that definitely is a way to get to crazy synchronicities if you want to go on the high strangeness. Because you dream the future way more than you think. Like as the stuff starts to get weird when you look at that. And
dude.
With the psychedelic experiments,
that's where I was
well. It absolutely will spike some weird coincidences and things, and a lot of it is the thing about synchronicities. A lot of it is it's super personal. A lot of it is, as a writer, they're hard to write about because you're like, well, that sounds dumb.
Yeah,
Like I found this thing and it was really weird, and like if you're trying to tell it to someone, you're like, you just found some. I did it today, and I was investigating a location, and I found this ring, and I was like, oh wow, that's weird. That symbol is super strange. And my girlfriend who's with me, she's like, no, it's not. But they sell that ring at Forever 21. It's like that's the dumbest. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, oh, shit, maybe you're right. So it gets weird, but it's definitely personal in the weirdness.
Yeah.
So psychedelics, I don't know if you gentlemen are aware, but it allows for communication between parts of your brain that don't usually interact. You look at your friend and be like, you taste yellow right now? Like
Synesthesia.
So
yeah, what's the word again?
Synesthesia.
Yeah, synesthesia. Go
I've
ahead.
heard some people they naturally have that, like even without using drugs.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's some people that do. It's crazy. It's a weird phenomenon. Scott, go ahead. What were you saying about it?
No, so yeah, if it allows communication between parts of your brain that don't usually get it, I mean, as I understand it, your right hemisphere controls the left half of your body, and that's the creative, dreaming, lucid side where you get a lot of intuition and ideas, and your left hemisphere, your brain operates your right side, and that's more your analytical, mathematical, STEM side of your brain. And so now you get these things mixing together, and you can get artistic fractals and kaleidoscopes of all kinds of shit. And you can talk to your friends without using your mouth, so you
That's
guys,
a good point.
You know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point. I never thought about the kaleidoscopic nature of psychedelics coming from those two brain parts finally hugging it out and shaking hands again and going, oh, dude, you're my buddy. I thought you were my enemy around the corner the whole time. Like, the ego versus self, this fake illusion, of duality that we're all kind of born into with that left-right brain kind of synergizes on psychedelics and in these synchronistic things. Like, for instance, I've had weird synchronicities happen pretty much every time I podcast with somebody. It's weird. It always happens. I mean, it's just a thing. And like every one of them individually is a coincidence, right? They sound stupid, like you said, but you string them all together and you yourself, you get to kind of see the picture. But the whole point is kind of like stop worrying about, I guess, trying to give your experience to someone else because you're not going to be able to do that. It's unspeakable.
Yeah.
I mean, the feeling that each and every one of us have gone through in these circumstances, these creepy circumstances or just bizarre ones, the feeling we can't feel that when we hear you tell the story, we can only imagine what we might experience in them, but it's really where your consciousness was when that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. It's completely intrinsic to the individual. Like we all have a hand. Well, most people have a hand and they can grab a doorknob and they know what it feels like to turn it to them. But the nerve and blood vessels in my hand may be different from Ed's or, Mason's, or, maybe, they have different textile or different, every experience is really intrinsic to the individual. So we can gauge and guess what other people feel, but there's really no walking in other people's shoes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the exact reason why I stopped trying to get people to listen to Fish.
So everybody, I really appreciate you guys coming on for this first roundtable. Ed, Chaz, Mason, Scott, dude, this was really fucking great. I really appreciate it. And I know we only scratched the surface here, and I welcome everybody back, whoever wants to come back and do more of these kinds of talks. And I have 3 more of these in particular lined up. And yeah, they're going to focus on psychedelics more, even though, and you know, that's the biggest list of people. Everybody wanted to get on that list, and it's awesome. I'm really happy about that. But it's like, of course, it bled right into this one too. You know what I mean? It's very hard to kind of just isolate paranormal. You know what I mean? So I hope to explore this deeper and broader and crazier. And I don't know. I think it was fun. How do you guys feel?
I had a great time. Thank you guys. I think we all look like the same person going through different parts of rehabilitation.
that's so accurate.
But you know, I had a great time. It's always fun to talk about this stuff, and in the no judgment zone. I think Mason kind of hit it on the head earlier when he was just like, you know, you're scared to talk about it because like it makes you sound like a crazy person, you know.
Right.
So so it's just like, you know, it's nice to just calmly talk about it and not freak out, you know. So thank you guys for that.
Well, thank you, Ed, for being
Yeah,
here.
this is awesome. Love the platform. I love the idea. I think yeah, you hit it on the head. It's all bleeding through already, and I think that's because it all bleeds together, and I think that's a cool thing to explore, because I think there's an answer out there. Maybe not a satisfying answer, but we can work together, collect stories, and sharing information. That's the best way to get to it. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me
let
on.
it be the boring answer.
Give me an easy way. Come on. So yeah, Chaz, where can they find you, man?
You can find me at Chaz of the Dead on all those social medias. I got a website, chazofthedead.com, where I put up my writings and podcasts I'm on and all that kind of stuff. I also have a book, Paranormal Expeditions, Hunt for the Friendship. It's about my trip down to Chile to look for a group of extraterrestrials, so they claim, and doing a lot of weird psychedelic experiments on the way. So yeah, check it out if you like this kind of stuff.
And Ed, where can we find you, man?
At Eddie Tunes on Instagram, at Eddie Tunes _ on Twitter. Check out the Brighter Side podcast, the one I do with Amber Nelson on the Last Podcast Network.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. And also, if you get a chance, go check out my movie, How America Killed My Mother. It's available at howamericakilledmymother.com. It's been out for almost a year now. It's been doing real well. And it's $2.99 to rent and $5.99 to buy. So check it out. I would love it if you guys. We've been doing some live shows lately, so hopefully do some more. We just did Florida and Columbus and Hollywood, so it'd be cool to keep doing more.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, so check that out. howamericakilledmymother.com.
Cool. Mason, thank you so much for being here, brother. And I know I'm going to have you back. Chaz, I'm going to have you back for the psychedelic one. Scott, you're more than welcome. I mean, Ed, more than welcome. We'll fucking, whoever wants to join in. I might end up being a fucking 10-part series, but whatever, I'll do it, you know? So where can they find you, Mason? Where can they find your wonderful, amazing, energetic group? Because I love you guys.
Thank you, man. Well, yeah, I'm on Instagram at Schumann Beings, YouTube Schumann Beings, and Telegram it's Schumann _Beings, and that's it for right now. But I'm hoping to get on some more platforms and be making some more like steady content soon. So yeah,
Great to hear. Great to
awesome
hear.
to be here.
Scott, thanks again for coming on, man. I really appreciate you being here, dude. Scott sends me all kinds of stuff, and I just still need to sift through half of it. It's awesome, man. Like, I love the community that just surrounds this, is just constantly putting more information into the well. You know, I mean, I feel like we need to just put everything on the table, keep everything that fits together, and toss what tries to be unique. And, you know, it's like, it's one big picture that we're trying to put together, you know, together, I think. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. And listeners, have a good night.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, vegetarian. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...